We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. The way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to cover the Crimson Tide.
Bro, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.
Hope it didn't take that long again. Go Dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 100 Sanford podcast. We are back at 100 Sanford. It's Lamar Lovelace without the big G, but I got I guess you can say the little G, but He's still a big G. You guys know what I mean. It's Graham Coffey. What's going on, Graham?
Not much, man. Not much. Just getting through the dog days of summer here, starting to ramp up for football season, man. It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, man. Everybody's putting out those edits with the numbers of the jerseys and how many days are left. And heck, I've been working like crazy, so I don't even know how many days are left. I think we're like down to like 70 or something like that, or 71, 69. Who knows? But it's getting close. I think everybody's getting itchy. Everybody's getting ready. You know,
right.
The fever's in the air, and people are just like, man, look, I'm trying to go for a three-peat and knock these boys out again. And I'm getting excited. I know you are. You know, our chats are blowing up and everybody's just ready to roll, man. Ready to roll.
Yeah, I know, man. You know, this is supposed to be like the slow time of the year. A lot of college football is on vacation, but with the way Kirby and them boys are recruiting, I mean, man, I feel like I'm posting 5 updates a day on Dawgs Central right now. It's just been nonstop.
Facts. And if you guys don't know, always go to Dawgs Central. You're going to get the most updated information, recruiting, any type of buzz that we're hearing in the community. And today we're going to talk about something that's pretty interesting because my man Graham and even Trigger Trey was in the building. Yeah, man. Was out there at the Elite 11. So we had two future dogs out there, Dylan Raiola and also Puglisi were out there along with some of the most elite quarterbacks in the nation. So we wanted to kind of throw something out. We haven't been on in a couple weeks just based off of work obligations and family obligations over here in the dog days of summer, but we wanted to kind of talk to Graham about that because he was there on site, had an opportunity to see these guys face to face, had an opportunity to evaluate the talent that was out there. So Graham, I mean, what was your immediate thoughts about the Elite 11, just the environment, everything that goes on with it? I mean, we see it on TV sometimes, but you know, what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting event because it's, you know, it's kind of like a summit of sorts for the recruiting industry and, you know, a lot of college football people who aren't in the recruiting industry or, you know, I mean, Ryan Russillo's out there for, you know, who's kind of an NBA guy, you know, but like point being, it's just there's lots of big names, big faces, and then you've got 20 of the best high school quarterbacks in the country. And there's a really massive value in being able to look at all of them at once and evaluate them at the same time. And, you know, the event is 3 days. And so there's certain drills that I think have more predictive value onto how a player is going to be at the next level than others. You know, I'm always going to value what a dude does when he's throwing to wide receivers versus stationary drills and, you know, just dropping back and humming it at the same target over and over. Not to say that stuff's not fun to watch, because I mean, dude, watching Ryan Puglisi, a kid who throws 94 on a radar gun, like hum it into these targets over and over to where they're clinging and these big metal stations are about to fall over, like, that's fun to watch as a guy that likes football.
Right. And,
you know, in addition to the quarterbacks, you had some of the best running backs in the country out there. The receiver pool wasn't as good as I kind of hoped it would be, but there were some guys out there that we got to put eyes on that are elite players. So, yeah, in addition to the quarterbacks, you kind of get a look at some of the other top players in not just 2024, but 25 and 26 kids. And I thought it was interesting seeing Raiola, seeing Puglisi, and then kind of seeing how those guys stacked up with everybody else.
Yeah, because it's funny when you're looking at some of the news stories that come out, some of the different outlets, some of the other prognosticators are like, oh, okay, this guy had a great day. This guy had a great day. I'm sitting back and I'm waiting for you guys to kind of hit us up in the chat and say, nah, you know what, this guy was on point, this guy wasn't.
Yeah,
because it was interesting that I think it was Ethan Grunkmeyer from Penn State, the 3-star. And they're like, okay, he lit up the first day. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I haven't heard my boys' names, what's going on?
yeah.
How from a guy who's there on site, what feeling did you get in terms of Raiola and Puglisi versus the competition? Like where they really stand in as boys amongst men, men amongst boys, that type of thing.
For sure. Well, all things are relative, right? Like, the first day of drills, like, you're not seeing those guys doing a lot of actual, like you're seeing them make throws, but you're not seeing them do a lot of like throwing routes.
Right.
And you're not seeing them throw against defenders. So
is that the target throws in day one, like hitting the pole?
Some of the target throws were the morning of day 3, but it was just a lot of warm up type drills is how I would describe it.
Gotcha.
There was one of the first drills they did was they split the guys up into a few groups, and they had Raiola and Puglisi in the same group all week, which was nice for us being able to just follow one group around instead of Trey and I having to split up. But, they came down and they put those guys on, I think, the 25-yard line. And then they put a receiver on one side of the goal line and then on the other side. So basically you had a receiver standing by the front pylon on either sideline. And they're just – that receiver is standing inside of a little maybe 1 square yard cone square. Yeah. And they're just trying to throw at those guys over and over without having those guys move. So basically it is a form of target practice, right?
Right.
And, Raiola looked very good with it. Puglisi, pretty strong as well. DJ Lagway was in their group, had one run where he struggled, where he was bouncing balls, and then he had another where he wasn't. So I think that's the interesting part about all this is some of those national services, obviously we have great respect for what those guys do, but they're trying to watch 20 dudes and they're taking, maybe 5 minutes of throws that they watched on that specific kid and making kind of a broader judgment. I thought that Raiola, he's clearly the most talented quarterback in the class. There's no question about that. There are other really effective quarterbacks in this class. Julian Sayin and Raiola, I think, are kind of the clear top tier. Sayin is a surgical short ball thrower. He's going to be very good in an RPO-based offense. He gets the ball out quick. He really spins it, and he's very, very accurate. In a lot of ways, he reminds you of Bryce Young. He's good with some of the off-platform stuff, especially if he's rolling to his right. And you see kind of the the quick balls, the short game type stuff really, really excels there. Yeah. Deep balls, he's accurate deep. I mean, fairly accurate, relatively speaking, for deep balls and a high school quarterback. But, it takes a lot of effort for him to get those deep balls out there. Him throwing a 40-yard opposite hash deep ball really requires him, to put all of his body into the throw. And it's, his deep ball is going to float a little bit more. Whereas a guy like Raiola, you see him rolling out, throwing off platform deep balls that are 40, 50 yards in the air. And that ball is still driving, he's not having to, he can rainbow it if he needs to. Yeah. But he doesn't have to get the ball out there. Like it's more like what you see from an NFL quarterback. Like when you're watching a Rodgers or a Mahomes throw a deep ball, it's easy and the ball comes out easy and everything looks effortless with him. And he's, I think, in really good shape. There was some people that wondered if he was like, there's been some people that thought he kind of got heavy
That was the question I was going to ask you, because a lot of people are like, he's a big kid, and it looks like he's just got a chubby face. You know what I mean, that's just the way.
Yeah, he's got a baby face.
Right, that's it, the baby face. You know what I mean? So I wanted to know, what did his body look like? What did Puglisi's body look like? Are these guys like college built ready? You know what I mean? Where they can come in, withstand some of the pounding they're going to take in the SEC, or is it one of those things where this year they're going to have to work on that body that senior year to prepare themselves?
I mean, I think Raiola definitely will be helped by going into a college nutrition program. But, I think he's very, very strong, very muscular through the shoulders, through the chest. He's a thickly built kid, like he's not fat, he's not chunky, but like he's got a wide frame. And, I think now, even where he is at this moment, he's in very, very good shape, but like he could become, a kind of freaky athletically speaking. Like, he's not going to be a guy that's running, 4.4, 4.5 out there or anything like that. But just, I think that putting him into a program like Georgia, where everything is so scientifically dialed, you're talking about a guy who already walks around with athletic gifts and arm strength that very, very few people do. And then you're adding to that basically, just getting the very last piece out of it. So his ceiling is just so high, but shape wise, there's not concern there. I think, he will mature just because he's still a 17-year-old kid. Puglisi, honestly, just physically speaking, other than probably DJ Lagway, I would say has the most like college ready physique of any guy there. It's not because he's like ripped up and cut up. Yeah. He's just a big kid, dude. And you get around some of these Elite 11 kids, and they're listed at 6'1" on the recruiting services, but they're more like 5'11" and a half, and they're kind of slight. And with Puglisi, like that dude is wide, like broad-shouldered. Looks like he could go ahead and play right now in the SEC in like a zone read based offense and carry the ball 8 to 10 times a game. Yeah. Keeping it on quarterback keepers and stuff like that. So he can definitely take hits. I think the question with Puglisi, like Raiola is the most polished product there.
As well as he should be. I mean, when you think about the NFL pedigree, his dad being in the NFL, being able to work with, I think his dad is friends with Matthew Stafford. I mean, some of the resources he's going to have. I mean, he should be a little bit more polished. Yeah. Exactly. He grew up in that.
Totally. And he is polished. Puglisi, when everything works, like when his footwork is right and he keeps his throwing motion short and he doesn't try to aim the ball, he trusts his motion. It's beautiful to watch. I mean, like tools-wise, physical tools-wise, I think that, I would put everybody physical tools-wise under Lagway. Mm-hmm. Lagway is an Anthony Richardson type athlete.
He's a freak, man.
Yeah, he's got a lot to work on to be an effective passer. But he was, with the stationary drills, he was better in stationary drills than I thought he would be. He's not. He really struggled in 7-on-7. Just wasn't very accurate and didn't make good decisions. But with Puglisi, it's like he's got kind of the next best set of tools, maybe. He's sort of like I hesitate to compare any of these kids to NFL quarterbacks, but people know NFL quarterbacks, so it's better. But like, where Raiola is like a Mahomes, Puglisi's like a Josh Allen, right? Like he's a big, thick dude. He's going to get downhill, effective with his legs, beautiful off-platform throws, and rocket arm.
Interesting. Because, I was going to say Mahomes for Raiola with a little bit of a mix of Ben Roethlisberger in there. If he continues to get a little bit bigger, right? But for Puglisi, I was really going to say Brett Favre. I don't know why I get that out of the kid. You know what I mean? Just like a gunslinger, strong, physical kid that can, sling that ball over the place, throws off platform. I mean, excellent.
Yeah.
That's where I was going to go with this. So I like your comparisons.
I think he's probably got a little better feet, like a little more running ability than a guy like Favre did. Although Favre played for so long that younger in his career, you're probably right. I think this is going to work for Georgia, really, is my big takeaway, though. Just because I think Raiola is going to show up and he's going to be pretty ready to play. And I think that Puglisi is a guy who, again, has all the physical tools. And, I think he's further along with those tools than a guy like maybe Brock Vandegrift was. Like no one's going to have to rebuild Puglisi's throwing motion. He's got a good delivery. He needs to get more consistent. He can do some things with his feet. His lower half, isn't always operating with his upper half when he throws a football because his arm is so strong. Yeah. But I think that, by the time Raiola is maybe getting ready to leave to go to the NFL draft, Raiola is probably a 3-and-out kid. And so Puglisi probably will be ready to take over the reins. And both of those guys could end up starting for multiple years at Georgia, Yeah. I think Ryan is probably a redshirt type kid, but you never know when the light comes on for some of these guys. The biggest thing for me, like evaluating any quarterback, throw all the physical stuff out. Like, can you read the field? Can you get through reads? And then, do you see the field in kind of like a three-dimensional way? And, a lot of these young quarterbacks, they just see lateral windows. And if they can't see the receiver and they're, if there's not nobody between them and the receiver, then they don't feel like that player is open. And you saw that with pretty much everyone there except for Raiola. Raiola is the guy that he sees those second and third level throws and he knows how to use touch and use trajectory to fit balls in between defenders or to, he made some throws in his 7-on-7 session where it was just like, his guy barely has any separation, but Raiola, throws it up near the goalpost where only his kid can catch it. Or, there's one he threw in the back of the end zone that it looked like an easy touchdown, and it was an easy touchdown, but it was a throw that I didn't see anyone else make all week because he was floating a ball in stride over a kid that was a defender that was sitting in zone coverage. So those are the things that are exciting about him, because it's not just the physical tools. It's the football IQ as well.
Yeah, I mean, we heard about the 7-on-7s, how well he performed. I think you reported that he went, I think it was 19 for 20 in the 7-on-7s or something like that. He's either 16 of his 20 or
13 to 16 for
4 touchdowns. That's what it was.
He scored a touchdown on every one of his drives. Yeah. And the thing that's funny is that maybe his best ball of the entire 7-on-7 session was a drop touchdown pass. Right. So you really grade him at 14 to 16.
So when you look at these guys, right, and you look at how they performed on the 7-on-7s, the individual work, what did you take away, or what did they tell you that they were told by some of the coaches that they need to work on? I mean, because we hear all the positive things, and if the guy, goes there and he flames out, obviously we're going to hear all the negative things from the on-3s and the rivals and anybody else that was there. But what did you take? What did you take away from this in terms of, these guys need to work on this before they can get to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have one of those with Raiola. I think there's much less for him to focus on, right? Like it's footwork. It's it's kind of, how should I put it? Like it's perfecting. It's small chiseling. And then with Puglisi, I think there's a lot of film work that he can do. There's a lot of that processing stuff that he can learn. And then I think for him, it's really, now he's fully focused on football for the first time in his life. This past fall was the first this past spring was the first year of his life he didn't play baseball. And you can see in his delivery, his ball doesn't spin quite as much. Like it comes out more flat. It comes out hard and it comes out fast. And he throws a pretty ball, but it's just like you can see a lot of that pitching motion has influenced his throwing motion with the football. And I think just him having, the next 18 months, or I'm sorry, roughly 18 months before enrolling at Georgia to just be a football player and just hone that throwing motion is going to be huge for him. And then obviously, I think he can mature in terms of his field awareness and his ability to get through reads in a quick manner. I think right now he plays in a more competitive league than I think people realize, because like he plays in a league in Connecticut where a lot of schools are giving out they're giving out scholarships, and there's some post grads that they play against. So he's playing against some 19 and 20-year-old kids at times. But, I think he's just so athletic that right now he can kind of be a one read and go type quarterback, when he wants to be. His legs are good enough to where if that first guy's not open and he doesn't like what's going on with his check down, he can take off and he might run 30 yards for a touchdown. So probably just kind of working with him to be a guy who still has that dual threat ability, but also is capable of being a third and fourth read quarterback.
Yeah, now I can definitely see where you're talking about the Josh Allen comparison. Even in the games that I've seen him play in high school, as I think back on it, he did run the ball a lot. You know what I mean? Like he tucks the ball, he goes, and his running style, his motion, even putting his shoulder down is more like Allen. I can definitely see that. Elephant in the room, though. I thought by far, from all the reports that were coming out, that Raiola was going to get MVP and he was going to get the top billing quarterback of the Elite 11. All of a sudden, I see Julian Sayin, and I'm like, whoa, what happened, or what were your thoughts as to why Sayin got MVP and not Dylan Raiola?
Well, so the confusing thing about Elite 11, there's a couple things that are confusing about it. The first is that your junior year tape is 50% of your score. I don't know who grades that. I don't know what they're prioritizing in that grading, so that's kind of a black box in terms of we don't know what goes into it. And then with the scoring of the actual event, I think they weigh kind of all the drills the same. That's my impression. And, for me, it's like I'm going to put a lot more emphasis into how you did in 7-on-7 and how you did in your pro day workout when you're throwing to real receivers and all of that. That's a lot more important to me than target practice. Thanks. And, it's cool. And again, it's fun to watch, but that's not real football. And so I think Julian was he was really good in everything that he did except for the 7-on-7. And 7-on-7, I watched him. He had 6 drives with 1 touchdown. He struggled, and he definitely struggled. You didn't see second and third level throws. You saw a lot of check downs, all times where he didn't really trust his arm going to the sidelines from the opposite hash. I think everyone walked away being like, Raiola is the most talented kid here.
Right.
Saying, he's kind of that machine, that robot that if you design an offense around what he's really good at, then you can have a very effective offense. Like if you put him on 2018 Alabama, he would be a lot like Tua was, where it's like he's going to throw some perfect slant patterns, and because he's throwing them to Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith, he's going to have a lot of 70-yard touchdown passes, Right. So I think that him being named the MVP, like Julian's a great kid, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, like we got to know him when Georgia was recruiting. You know, I mean, like I'm a fan, and I think he's going to have a really, really good college career. But you know, who MVP of Elite 11 is not necessarily an indicator of who the most talented guy there is, or even, you know, who played best in certain situations. It's a little more subjective.
Well, let me go even deeper. Do you think by being around the 20 quarterbacks, is Puglisi or Raiola that alpha dog? Because, you know, you can tell who the alpha dog is. When you walk into a room, you're like, okay, that guy there, they'll follow through a foxhole, you know, with. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're going to go anywhere behind this guy. He's the leader. He's the bona fide leader. Or either one of those guys, that guy in this class, because guys want to play with guys like that. I mean, let's just be honest. And we're still hunting for some elite receivers, those twitchy guys. And there's 3 guys that Georgia's still going after, and they're hoping that they can pull in for this class. Yeah,
Raiola just kind of, you know, he almost carries himself more like he's, you know, a lot like the college counselors do. Like, wow, he's not shy. He's comfortable talking to everybody. You know, I mean, he came over and joked around and hung out with Trey and I for large chunks of time, you know, on Thursday and Friday. And like, he's not afraid of the media. He's used to the media. Right. You know, he's like confident in his ability. And I think the big thing with him is that this event is a lot of pressure for a guy that's the number 1 overall player.
Yeah, it is.
And there were some, like, you know, the target practice drill on Friday morning that we were talking about earlier, he did not do particularly well in, you know, he missed a couple throws, and then he started kind of trying to aim the football instead of just letting it hum. And that's basically the exact opposite way of how to be successful in that drill. And that frustration, you know, kind of got him out of rhythm. And so the question is like, what's he going to do in 7-on-7? How's he going to end this week in the setting that I think all of us that were there considered to be the most important one? You know, how's he going to do in the biggest drill of the week after he just had, like, he's a kid that's not used to failing. Yeah. And we just saw him fail. So how's he going to handle that? And it's not like he's got a night to go back and sleep on it. He's got to go back out and play in an hour. And he came out and went 13-16 for 4 touchdowns, you know? And that kind of said everything to me. I was talking to Jeff Christensen, who's Patrick Mahomes' personal quarterback coach, and he was talking about that as well. And he was like, that's the thing that the great ones have that, you know, not everyone else does, is like not just the short memory, but it's just like the ability to totally flip the switch, you know. And it's just it's a level of self-belief that you know, might in different arenas in life get mistaken as arrogance or cockiness, but it is an absolute essential trait to be a great quarterback. You know, I was around Stafford some in college. We had a lot of mutual friends, and like, he wasn't a dick to anybody, you know, like he wasn't an asshole, but he just kind of, you know,
he's that guy.
He's that guy. He just kind of floats a little bit above the rest of the room, right? And Raiola has some of that as well. And I think that, you know, I was impressed with his ability to be 100% aware of what was going on and be present, you know, and be relaxed and also perform, you know, and kind of he was able to sort of put all those different hats on pretty seamlessly, depending on what the situation required.
Yeah, I wasn't there. And that was the thing that I took away too. After hearing the first day didn't go the way that he wanted it to go, or at least the first exercise, and then to turn it on. I mean, it takes a lot. You're the number 1 player in the country. You're the number 1 quarterback in the country. You're going to the number 1 team in the country. And you know what? I'm going to mention it now. He's going to the #1 team in the state of Georgia now. He's transferring to go there and play, right, for high school. I mean, there's a lot on that kid's shoulders to be able to live up to. And you have to live up to that moment every single time you go out. But when you mention, you know what, I failed or quote unquote didn't live up to the expectations of everybody on this first drill, to be able to compartmentalize that and then go out there and turn it on, that's special. And that means a lot for a kid, especially a kid that age. But I also think it comes with, with the upbringing, having gone through a lot of these things with his family, seeing it, like the Matthew Staffords of the world. I mean, heck, think of a guy that you could follow around and say, hey, things aren't going as well, but then you turn it on. That's Matthew Stafford in a nutshell, right? Especially when you get to the NFL level.
Absolutely. And, I think the interesting thing about him and Puglisi, that I was really eager to see. This was the first time those two have met in person.
Yeah, so the interaction.
Like, how's that gonna go? And everyone keeps waiting for Ryan to be afraid of that competition and to shy away and say, you know what, I am going to take an official visit to a place like Michigan or to somewhere else. And he stressed again this past week, like he wants to go to Georgia. He made the decision to go to Georgia well before Dylan Raiola did. And he's going to be a Bulldog. And, when coaches call him, he's like, yeah, I'm going to put the brakes on this. I'm going to Georgia.
Right.
He also isn't fooling himself. He understands why people ask him about Dylan. He gets why the questions are there. And I think what's interesting is you asked me who's kind of the alpha dog, and there's different ways to assert yourself. And Raiola does that by being extremely confident without coming off as cocky or having false, there's not a false bravado there. It's like, that's all genuine and real and legit. But Puglisi also has this innate self-belief where he's like, yeah, I'll go play in the same class as Dylan.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, and I think he knows he's probably a little bit more of a guy who's going to need a year or two before he's really ready to play and to be the dude at a program like Georgia, but he's comfortable with that. And he knows that he has a cannon for an arm. He knows he has a lot of tools. And I think everyone was just really I came away extremely impressed with the person that he is and how honest and just genuine he is. And, I asked him, I was like, are you tired of people asking you about Dylan? He's like, I only get tired of it if it's the same person asking the same question over and over. But I get why people would ask me about Dylan. He's a great player, and I was just like, well, how's this been for you guys? And I watched them for 3 days. Those dudes cheered each other on. They high-fived each other. They encouraged each other. They weren't connected at the hip, but they clearly have a good relationship. And he was just like, yeah, everyone keeps expecting me to hate the guy, but we're teammates,
Right.
I'm pulling for him. Besides myself, I want him to do the best. So I think that Ryan Puglisi is the type of kid that you need at elite programs. He's the type of guy that we've seen so many of at Georgia over the last couple of years, where it's he's there to play his role and to make the team better. And then at some point, his job to make the team better might be him being on the scout team and mimicking, a really good dual threat quarterback that's on Georgia's schedule. And then his job to make the team better might be as the starting quarterback for, a team that goes on to win a national title. But I think he's going to be down for whatever. And there's just not drama in that situation. I'll tell you now, that kid is not flipping his commitment. He's not going anywhere else but Georgia.
Nice. Well, what else did you hear out there when you were there in terms of just Georgia? And I mean, now we'll kind of transition to some recruiting, because I mean, since the last time we were on, 3 commitments. Jordan Thomas commits. You got the flip from Chauncey Bowens. You got Quintavious Johnson that committed yesterday. Did you hear anything, any buzz, especially coming from the recruits themselves? Puglisi from Dillon. Hey, you know what? We're going after these guys, lock, stock, and barrel, and I need these guys, especially even some big time protectors because they need some linemen too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Puglisi has been recruiting hard for Georgia for since November or October when he committed. And then Raiola's come in and has poured more gas on that fire. I think like there's definitely involvement with almost everybody in the class, right? Like, maybe not as much with some of the defensive guys, but like they are, they're both working hard on all those names that you put out. And, like Daniel Calhoun is a guy that, could end up committing to Georgia in the near future. Like Raiola has been working on him, like lots of offensive linemen, lots of wide receivers for sure. And I think that, the tight end out of Nebraska, Carter Nelson, like that's one that Dillon's been working on very hard. Jeremiah Smith is one that he worked on at one point. I feel like that recruitment is starting to trend elsewhere. There's a lot of drama in that, and it's just not the type of, the longer this goes on and kind of the more it plays out, the more it just feels like the type of headache that Kirby Smart's not signing up for. But, like Raiola has been FaceTiming with Cam Coleman for months now, and he's a 5-star wide receiver out of Alabama that is the closest thing I've seen to George Pickens since George Pickens. So like he is going to put together a pretty nasty little receiver core, and Puglisi will be part of that as well. But, with Raiola moving in state, playing at Buford, he's just going to be there all the time. And he's going to function very much as like one of the lead recruiters. And as far as committed prospects of the Kirby era, other than maybe Richard LeCount in Kirby's first full cycle, I don't think we've seen somebody that's this committed to recruiting their classmates as we've seen with Raiola.
Well, before we get out of here, we have to ask this question because, the news is all over the place. It's on our chat boards. It's on Facebook where we have our accounts there. And a lot of, I keep getting this question, and it's an interesting one. What happens to the kid at Buford that's been putting in all of his time? It's his time to play quarterback now. All of a sudden, here comes the big-time 5-star quarterback. He's coming all the way over from the West Coast. Did he give any indication as to why he wanted to transfer to Buford? Just to kind of give a little understanding to that listener, because the people that were asking the question, they do listen to the show, but they're like, what, I'd rather see that kid, that put in 5 years at Buford and he's come all the way up through the youth program and everything else. But it's like, it's competition. It's definitely competition. But what was his thoughts on why he wanted to transfer to Buford?
I think that, he wants to play against the best and he wants to play with the best. Pinnacle in Arizona is a very good program, but you just don't have the depth of competition in Arizona like you do in Georgia. Buford is also a high school where Georgia is traditionally like that's the one powerhouse program in the state that Georgia hasn't quite turned into a pipeline. You could maybe say Grayson is on that list as well. And I think that putting the number one player in the country there and letting him recruit for you every week is nice, and I'm not saying Kirby Smart told him where to transfer, but I think that Raiola wants to play with the best and he wants to play against the best. And doing that is smart. And, putting him in SEC country now, giving him a year to adjust to living in Georgia and, just kind of really being closer to a college football player than he will be a high school football player, just in terms of like the being away from home part and all of that. I think it will be good for his development. Why Buford? Yeah, I mean, it's the same, like, why, same reason why free agent basketball players try to team up on good teams, right? Like,
Right.
that you want to be surrounded by other good players, and that's going to be one of the closest places he can be to having that college atmosphere, just in terms of the intensity of practice and the competition he's going against day in and day out.
See, I wonder if it's also a strategic move where it expedites the opportunity for Dayton to get his opportunity over.
Oh, yeah,
Temple.
for sure.
You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? So now you got two big studs playing quarterback, in high school. Obviously, Dayton would have had to wait until Dylan was gone. He might get some, quote unquote mop up duty. But still, I mean, he's going to develop just like his brother's developing. But I think that was a nice move. And this is what I'm going to say to listeners who did not like the move. Get over it. It's just the way of sports today. It's the way that you have to navigate your career. You just got to navigate your career much earlier. I mean, the rest of us go and we sign up for college and you got to do your 4 years, come out and hope, you got a job at IBM, right? I mean, that's just the way it was. Now it's not that way. It's starting off earlier. Your people are putting their kids and themselves in a situation where they could expedite their career much quicker, get better opportunities. And if you have the ability and the accessibility to do so, like the Raiola family, then you do so. But nobody's knocking a kid that's going from, I don't know, Timbuktu, Texas, and all of a sudden he's transferring down to IMG. It's the same type of situation. You're going there to get better, play better competition. If you have the opportunity, you're just going to do so. So, I just want to throw that out there because we kept getting some kickback in terms of, well, I think the other kid there should be playing, and I get it. I'm a hometown guy too. I like to see a kid from the hometown play and get the opportunity to play, but it's all competition, and the better kid plays, and the better kid wins the position and opportunity. So,
yeah. Last thing before we wrap up.
Yeah, man.
You asked me earlier, and I didn't answer, but as far as just like football people out there, aside from recruiting, just talking about 2023 Georgia, there is like very much a vibe out there of, hey, like those guys just won a national title game by 58 points in the rebuilding year. Yeah. Like last year was the rebuilding year. Last year was, like really the vibe was like Ohio State should have gotten them and they didn't, to Georgia's credit. Georgia came off the mat and really outplayed them in a lot of ways in that game, and survived kind of some of the tough luck and bad breaks. And this 2023 team might produce just as many draft picks as the 2021 team. Like that's the vibe right now. And so, and I think people like Carson Beck, at least just from a talent standpoint, and a tool standpoint. I think there's a feeling that he can be a drafted quarterback as well. So a lot to be excited about if you're a Georgia fan. Like, point being, I know a three-peat has never happened before, but the smart football people feel like if there was ever a team that has the right ingredients to do it, it's probably this 2023 Georgia team we got coming up.
And I tell you what, the way college football is going, this might be the only opportunity that it will ever happen again. I mean, just with NIL, the ability to keep teams together, keep
12-team playoff.
12-team playoff, it's never going to be around again. And now, I'm not saying that Georgia cannot continue to dominate, even going to a 12-team playoff. And I was thinking about this today. And I know if you guys listen to the show, you've heard me talk about it multiple times. It's about culture, and one thing about Georgia, their culture is just different. It's going back to that Alabama culture where Alabama was dominating and the old guys were coming back, and it was the same process. Going back to that Miami culture, they even seemed dysfunctional at times, but it was a culture that everybody was tied in. This team has a culture where it's just completely dialed in. They monitor themselves. regardless of what you want to hear from newspapers off the field and all their kind of nonsense, they still take care of home. And this team is just on a whole nother level, recruiting at a whole nother level. Speaking of recruiting, we got a big weekend this weekend coming up. Make sure you tap into Dawgs Central. Believe me, there will be updates all the time on who's coming in, who's not coming in, who's hot, who's not. I think we got Joseph Jonye coming in this weekend. He's bringing his teammate, man. He's bringing Williams, the 5-star from Conroe. I asked my brother about him. He said, I hear the buzz, but I haven't gone up to see him yet. So he's going to go see him because he lives right there in Conroe, Texas.
Nice.
Yeah, Nair Daniels. I think, is Daniels coming in this weekend, the big 6'7" kid, the tackle from Jersey? I mean, that's Fran Brown's territory.
Yes. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And he canceled his official visit to Texas to do it. And everyone thought he was going to Texas. So reading between the lines there, I think it's just a matter of time before he commits to Georgia.
Yeah, man. I kind of feel that anybody that Fran wants to pull and get out of Jersey, he can. He's got that type of reputation. And I remember when he was announced as the DB coach, I actually went back to my cousin who played at Rutgers, went back to my other cousin who went to school up there in Jersey. They were like, man, he's the dude. Like he just people just gravitate towards him. So I would not put anything past him getting elite talent from that area. But Georgia's just recruiting at a high clip, so it doesn't even matter, man. And hopefully, bring in what did you say, Cam? If Cam is able to
Cam Coleman,
Cam Coleman.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that would be nice, man. We need another.
I think
receiver.
That's going to be one that his recruitment probably will play out all the way until December and early signing day. But Georgia's, I think, definitely making him a priority, and they're going to push him very hard here over the next 6 months. Gotcha.
All right, man. We thank you for blessing us with all that information from the Elite 11. Next week,
always a pleasure, my man.
Yeah, always, man, always. Next week, we should have the Big G on. He's out with the girls today. It was a pop-up show that we were going to do. I was out of pocket for a few weeks with doing this hospital stuff, but I'm ready to rock now, man, and I think it's about to heat up, and I can't wait for this season. With that being said, as always, see you at 100 Sanford. Go Dogs. Thank you for listening to the 100 Sanford podcast. Tune in weekly to hear fresh content from the 100 Sanford podcast every Thursday, but also with some pop-up shows every now and then as news breaks. You can also follow the content on our website, www.100sanfordpodcast.com, and email us at dogs@100sanfordpodcast.com. Lastly, reach out to us on social media streams. For Twitter, it's at 100 Sanford, but on IG, TikTok, Facebook, and other accounts, it's 100 Sanford Podcast. All right, folks, that's it. And as usual, see you at 100 Sanford.